What is that? It's 12 minutes.
Let me guess. Someone stole your
xQc.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week we're finally taking a look at Sweetrolls from Skyrim.
If China is a communist country,
Hold up.
it's our oil. We all get to equal share. Also EU lost to Waterloo. xQc.
Okay, dude.
Sweetrolls Online Greymore, an award-winning online role-playing game where you can join 15 million players to defeat an ancient salt pile, 1 jug of milk, 1 sack of flour, 1 butter, and 1 chicken's egg. So to start off, I wanted to see if I can make a sweet roll using only these ingredients.
I kind of want to, you know.
My mind went immediately to Yorkshire pudding, the traditional version of which we're going to make by combining 120 grams of sifted all-purpose flour with a 1/4 teaspoon each kosher salt and freshly ground pepper, tiny whisked to combine.
Guys, I'm not ADHD, dude.
Large cold eggs, which we're going to whisk.
What, if I'm watching? Because I was interested.
To do this one hand in a 425-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 10 minutes or until smoking. It's during this time that we're going to give our nice cold batter
I'm not
one final
ADHD.
whisking, pour it into a container with a spout, and use that spouted container to quickly fill our preheated muffin cavities about halfway full. Make sure you get all these perfectly even, otherwise you're going to have kind of a half-assed one at the end here. But no matter, these guys are headed into that 425-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 15 minutes or until golden brown and super puffed.
Wait,
evacuate
that looks
immediately
disgusting.
onto a wire rack and consume while still hot. Now maybe you can see what I was going for here. There's a hole in the middle, but these things get pretty tough and kind of leathery after being allowed to cool to room temperature. I tried to make a version where I left out the ground pepper and added butter to the milk, both to make this video game accurate and to try to give these things a better texture once cooled. I also
What do you guys get mad when I say something looks bad or is bad?
Right, but they turned out pretty dense and gummy, which you can imagine was a bit of an arrow in the knee. So I decided to turn, as I so often do, to the official Elder Scrolls cookbook, which calls for combining 3 tablespoons of melted butter with 1 cup of
Your
warm whole
opinion
milk,
is dumb.
2 tablespoons of honey, and 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Tiny whisking with a large egg and a pinch of salt.
I'm not enjoying this now. I'm watching it.
All-purpose flour until a smooth batter forms. We're then going to generously butter our miniature bundt cake or
I like tricking people with my culinary opinions.
Make sure to wipe up all the icky excess. Make sure that everybody's perfectly aligned with the camera. Cover with plastic wrap and let rest at room temperature for 30 minutes, during which time your batter should expand twice fold. We're then carefully unwrapping our little sort of yeasted cakes, placing them on a small rimmed baking sheet and placing that in a preheated 350
That's science,
Fahrenheit oven. There they shall stay for about 15 minutes or until lightly browned and a toothpick inserted in the thickest point emerges clean. Then after letting them cool in the pans for about 5 minutes,
Oh, that looks good.
and let them cool completely on
That
a
looks
wire
good.
rack. During which time we're going to make our frosting. Now to get that Skyrim sweet roll look, we need to achieve a very specific viscosity. I found that a ratio of 200 grams confectioner's sugar to 45 grams low-fat milk was just right, making a glaze that just sort of gently drapes over the top of the sweet rolls. And there you have it, sweet rolls via the Elder Scrolls official
that looks really
companion
good.
cookbook. They sure do look the part, but what do they taste like? And the answer is not bad, but not great either. I'd imagine they're very accurate
Tasteless.
to how they would taste in the game. Sort of a bready, relatively bland medieval snack. But what if we want a sweet roll as tasty and tubular as it is in our imagination?
Fill with
For
all
that,
chocolate.
I think we gotta turn to brioche, the sweet, eggy, buttery, flaky bread of your dreams.
I love
A bowl of
those.
stand mixer goes 510 grams of all-purpose
Brioche,
flour,
that's
60
really
grams
good.
of granulated sugar, about 14 grams of active dry yeast, or maybe 10-12 grams of instant yeast,
Chat.
and about 15 grams of kosher.
Chat, listen. The best brioche are at IKEA. I said it. I don't give a fuck if you're a chef, dude. If you're a best chef, if you're Gordon Ramsay, dude. Just admit it, dude. Admit it, pussy. The best cinnamon rolls, dude, are at IKEA. Right at the checkout.
Salt,
Yep.
tiny whisk
It is what
into
it
a
is.
state of homogeneity before placing to the base of a stand mixer and adding 4 large room temperature eggs.
Ain't yours?
You do not want any cold liquids in this recipe, as it's going to make it a lot harder to emulsify butter into the dough later on. Affix dough hooks and begin to mix and knead together for about 4 to 6 minutes. We want all the dry ingredients to be incorporated into the eggs, and the dough should just start to look a little smooth. Scrape down the sides of the bowl and the dough hook as necessary, and then it's time to start adding the butter. This is where your stand mixer is going to start to pay for itself. I tried to do this by hand once and damn
show you.
near quit cooking altogether. So with the stand mixer running on low, 1 or 2 small pieces at a time, we're going to start adding 225 grams or 2 sticks of high quality unsalted room temperature butter. After each addition, crank up the speed a little bit and allow the butter to incorporate entirely into the dough. This is going to take Well, it's going to take
Chat,
a good
those
long
ones.
while, anywhere from 4 to 8 minutes between each addition, and especially slow at the beginning of the process. Fight the urge to move any faster and wait until the dough is starting to clear the sides of the bowl before adding any more butter. If you move too fast, the dough could break and separate into an oily, shaggy mass. And as far as I know, there's no
After this, I will
remedy
check
for that
Reddit
other
and I will
than
do again.
starting over from butter square 1. Once you've added your final hunk of butter and allowed it to incorporate completely into the dough, we're going to crank the stand mixer onto medium speed and allow it to knead for 5 to 8 minutes.
This looks like it's
until
doing
it very
nothing, yeah.
nearly cleans the sides of the bowl and becomes impossibly soft and smooth and silky. Unfortunately, half of bread baking is kind of knowing what it needs to feel like, and the first time you make a proper brioche dough, you know it. It's super soft and buttery and almost flowy without being too sticky. It even comes straight out of the bowl without putting up a fuss. Now onto an unfloured countertop, we're going to start working this into a smooth, taut ball. Simply find the smoothest facet of your dough, make it face the sky, and start passing the dough
So
back
that's like
and forth
booty
between
cheeks.
your hands, pinching the edges against the table as you go. This is going to pull the exterior of your dough ball super taut. Now it is time for the first rise. Into a generously buttered bowl goes our boule. Plop it in the bowl,
Okay,
seat
man.
side down, cover with plastic wrap, and let it sit at room temperature for anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes, or until doubled in size. Now we're just going to pop it back out onto
See,
the
that's
countertop
science,
real quick,
dude.
punch it down, and to help develop its gluten network, we're going to perform a series of folds. Start at the top of your dough, fold it in towards the center, and repeat working your way around the dough until you've completed 6, 7, 8, 9 folds. Can you tell why I'm a terrible baker? Then repeat the edge pinching technique to pull your dough ball taut, and at this point you could return it to a buttered bowl to let it rise for 1 hour before shaping, proofing, and baking. But if you want better flavor and texture, you might want to consider giving it anywhere from 12 to 48 hours in the fridge. After which time it should have puffed up a little bit, but not too much. Carefully pull it out the bowl, and then depending on what you're doing with it, divide it into pieces.
God, it's like
If you wanna
magic.
make a good old-fashioned, easy-peasy loaf of brioche bread, divide it in half, turn the half dough out onto a well-floured work surface, and roll it out into a rectangle about as wide as your intended loaf pan. Then roll it up lengthwise so it'll fit inside the loaf pan, hide the seams underneath the roll, generously butter and flour a non-stick loaf pan, plop the roll inside, cover loosely with plastic wrap, and let rest at room temperature for anywhere from 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2.5
I'm getting hungry now,
hours.
dude.
You want it to have about doubled in size and not spring back fully or
Chat,
with vigor when poked.
This is the 4th time that
That's how you
it's
know it's ready
grown
for a
in
wash
size.
with a beaten egg, and about a 45-minute stint in a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven, rotating halfway through baking and tenting with foil if it starts to get too
Like
brown
magic.
too fast. You know that it's done when it's deeply golden brown, makes a hollow thump when you thump it on the bottom, and when its thickest point registers between 195 and 210 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure to allow to cool completely about an hour and a half before slicing and devouring. Now,
Wait, what
this
is
an
that?
absolutely resplendent loaf of brioche, but as so often happens, I've completely lost track of what I'm doing. So this time we are buttering and flouring our miniature tube pans so we can achieve that hole in the middle sweet roll style look. And once we've coated those generously in stick protection, we're going to divide that remaining half of the dough batch into 4 pieces, each of which we're going to roll into a ball.
That's not
And then,
brioche.
almost like we're forming a bagel, we're going to punch a hole directly in the center of the ball so that our little brioche donut fits perfectly into our tube pan. We're then going to press it firmly into the tube pan to make sure that there are no underlying bubbles.
It's a loaf of
Since
bread.
These little guys are going to be inverted when served. Likewise, we are covering them with plastic wrap and allowing them to rest at room temperature, this time for anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. Again, depending on the heat, humidity, and draftiness of your room. Once they pass the poke test, they are headed onto a rim baking sheet where I'm going to brush them down with beaten egg for some reason, even though they're going to be served upside down, and then into a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for
Guys,
25.
when my mom makes a brioche, it's the spinner wheels. It's the spinner, not the fucking bread loaf.
To 35 minutes, given their
It's
much
the
smaller
spinner!
size signature. Immediately remove them from their tins, otherwise you're going to end up with soggy brioche. And these guys are looking pretty spot on if you ask me. They look really rustic and kind of freeform, but as excited as I am, I must wait until they've cooled completely before frosting. Same procedure here, just gently drape the glaze over the top of the sweet roll, letting it cascade down the sides in that distinctive Skyrimian pattern. And there you have it, folks. Tender, flaky, buttery, eggy, springy, airy, and lightly sweet sweet rolls. And I gotta say, this is how I always imagine them looking, feeling, smelling, tasting.
It's very bland.
sounding. The brioche is super tender and flaky, but it's got a nice toothsome quality from all that gluten development, and it's incredibly rich from all the butter, so it plays really nice with that super sweet topping. It is a member of the Clean Plate Club and undoubtedly one of my favorite things that I've ever made. But I'm not stopping there, because you see, Bethesda challenged me to make a sweet roll fit for a giant, perhaps as an apology for all the mammoth
Okay, I'm gonna
cheese
skip
stolen
this.
over power. Because this sweet roll gets up
Okay, it
with
rises
an extra
big.
batch of the glaze and simply pouring it over the top of our upside down brioche bunt.
No,
And in
ADHD, dude.
retrospect, I made this guy
Why
a
not
little
just
too
eat the
tall because I
gla-
wanted to recreate that sort of sweet roll look, but you could totally make a single batch of dough and bake it as a bundt cake, and it would be amazing. Anyway, we might as well get a cross section of this guy as long as we're here. I'm honestly shocked to find that the crumb is actually pretty nice. So now I can say with confidence that this is both the biggest and best sweet roll I've ever made. And it's all thanks to the folks at Bethesda for sponsoring this episode and making some of the best games
Cool.
of all time, including The Elder Scrolls Online, Great.
That was pretty sweet, chat. I actually, chat. You know what, chat?
Depths in Elder Scrolls
I normally don't watch long videos like that when they're like about cooking or whatever. Dude. I enjoyed this.
Online.
That was a good video.
Explore the
I'm a little hungry now, dude, but that was
snow-swept
good.
region of Western Skyrim and face an ancient vampiric army as part of a year-long gothic adventure. I've got a
I enjoyed the video, dude. That was good. That was sweet. Pog pog.
Love you, xQc.